All right. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Ooh. Welcome to the Cosmic Labyrinth here. We're going to be showing our fourth episode, and it's going to be about the air elements and the air gale this time. So let me share with you presentation.
Error. Oh my gosh. Uh
Can you just see that?
oh yeah.
Cool. Yep. Awesome. So here in the Cosmic Labyrinth, what we're trying to do is really kind of find a new way to kind of bring entertainment and education together. So we're kind of building out this kind of curriculum which has also a story, really to really bring people together and kind of find a way that we can also help the earth, right? Because a lot of us talk about it. Maybe there's a good way to really actually be more proactive about it. So just to start off, I don't know if you guys know anything about astrology. Do you know anything about astrology, Drew or Emma?
Just very basic
Very
level.
basic. Okay. So
I don't I don't I don't I don't I don't believe in that. That's the devil.
so you don't have to believe in it. Actually, this is just what it looks like in this in space right now, right? When you look out there and you look at where we recognize our planets, these are where planets are right now. And so transits represents kind of like how we talk about this when the sun goes through the transits, it goes through to us the seasons, right? So when the sun is really close to us, it's closer to Cancer, Leo, Virgo time, it's when the sun is really hot, right? And so you can see how just the planet itself can make a huge impact on our Earth planet here. So the transits here represents so like the moon and how we also know about the 28th cycle of the moon. And so in astrology, we can see kind of the sun, the moon, and different um, gravitational bodies in the solar system that does affect us either daily or through different phases. And so
I mean
here,
it, I mean it definitely affects like mating in animals. There are certain animals that don't even lay their seeds depending on where the sun is, and even planets.
exactly. So here you can see that we also just went into an eclipse season, right? Everybody probably talked about it. It was eclipse in Aries and April 21st. So almost kind of near Earth Day, right? And where the moon here was over here in Aries of 29th. And so here now you can see that we've moved into Taurus season. And with Taurus season, there's a couple of planets here. We have here Mercury that is retrograding. So and know that's kind of where a lot of people are kind of having some kind of communication issues, especially here. I mean, this is the Earth signs, and we're kind of going into Earth Day, right? Yesterday, so it's kind of works that we went from Aries energy, which is the day of spring, right, and then moving into Taurus, which has a lot more of what we see the flowers coming out, right? Because after the spring has started, you see more flowers, you see more bees around, and so you're gonna see more of the pollen too, right? Because that's a lot of pollen and fertility. And what we see here, though, is because today we're talking about the air element, and so it's actually nice that paying attention here to Pluto moving into Aquarius. That was a pretty big transit about a month ago, where Pluto is kind of like represents a generation. And so Pluto in Aquarius, this generation is kind of like this spiritual revolution, right? And so this is where we're going to see more of that revolutionary ideas that comes through the nation, where people work together to really bring their own spiritual ideals out and being able to be more representative of what we believe in and what we care about.
Oh, it sounds like good timing for Cosmic Labyrinth.
Exactly, right? And so as we're gathering here today, what's nice is today the moon is in Gemini here with Venus in Gemini, right? Conjunct. So that means when we see the conjunct, is just kind of like putting two planets really close together. And you see that even in magnets, right? When you put two magnets together, the magnetic field becomes even stronger. And so the idea when you see these conjunctions, these planetary energies become stronger. And so in our lives, we'll pay attention to things that become a little bit more apparent. And that's why the four elements is always interchanging itself in our daily lives. But some seasons or some cycles, one of the four elements might be even more apparent, right? Um, so I mean, we do have some earthy element here with Taurus, but with Venus and the Moon, and Venus and the Moon do move a little bit quickly. Like Venus is every 2.5 days, she moves into another sign. So we usually don't pay attention to that. We pay attention to it on a daily basis, right? So today we can look at it, say Moon's in Gemini. In 2 3 days, it's gonna be gone to another sign. So you don't want to. This is why like people say, oh, you're kind of bipolar or you're so emotional. Actually, some of these people ride with the emotional wave of the moon. And so what happens is you'll see different groups of people get a little bit more sensitive to things, right? And so, but today we're excited that it's not necessarily sensitive, but maybe we want to be quizzical or curious. And so Gemini brings in this very curious energy, and it doesn't play light or dark. It plays both sides because the idea is you never know what is good or bad because it's all relative, right? It's when you have a bad side that you have, could say you have a good side, but if those two don't exist, then they're really the same thing. And so Gemini really plays out with this energy very strongly, while Aquarius plays out more of the individualistic energy, but in a collective. So it's kind of like this dichotomy that we can be collectively working together, but each of us has our own individual goals, right? And and then here we have the rising in Cancer. This is depending every 2 hours, it changes. So right now, as we're kind of gathering together, we're just seeing the transits for the next 2 hours. Besides that, though, like transit like Taurus, we're going to see the sun in Taurus for another month, right? And that's kind of where we get into the very strong spring season. Chinese medicine, the spring season is actually the liver energy that actually comes out. So you'll see a lot of plants blooming and a lot of greens coming out. And so even within our own body, right, the hepatic portal vein is where, you know, the blood has been stored in the liver and now it comes out and grows out into our body, right, giving us all this energy to go out, because the spring is when we actually come out because we've been cooped up in the winter for so long, right? And so now we're really excited that the flowers are around and everything looks beautiful. And with the moon in Gemini and Venus there, you know, we can be a little bit more looking to have fun ideas and be able to be, you know, more curious, right? More inquisitive, more playful, more communicating, more communicative towards each other. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So we'll move on to the intro. So we want to welcome everyone for coming back. We are called the Omega class because we believe that we're both a student and the teachers in this group, because we're kind of like the beginning of the first class, right? So if you guys imagine like X-Men had, you know,
The first
everyone
class.
recognizes the X-Men first class, but we all know that like eventually more awesome mutant shows up. But like in the beginning, like we all remember, you know, Jean Grey, Cyclops. And so this idea is like, as we're building the foundation to this game, you know, everybody who's joining us right now, we are the Omega class, right? So you've probably also heard like there's no beginning, there's no end. And so, you know, in a way, we allow ourselves to kind of move between being a teacher and a student all the time, right? And that's a little bit more reflective on how we live in our lives, right? Because there's some days that you have something to offer today, but maybe tomorrow there's something you need to learn and someone else has to offer that information.
Wait, I have a proposal here, Charlie. What is that'd be cool. What is everybody learning? Like, is maybe drop it in the chat or you want to hop on the mic. Are you learning anything right now? Yes? What are you learning? Quickly. What are you guys learning? Anybody? No?
I'm learning how to transplant citrus trees and grow food. So many
Transplant
factors.
transplanting citrus trees and not the fire ants.
Yes, sans fire ants.
Anybody else?
How to
Anybody?
neutralize the fire ants.
Exactly. with love, with compassion.
Totally.
Hoda, nice to see you.
Hi. Hi.
Receiving. Mel says receiving in the chat that she's learning receiving.
I'm learning a ton about permaculture on Hawaii.
Nice. Noise. And maybe let's flip that. What are you teaching right now? Like, are any of you teaching? What are you teaching? Where are you feeling like you're teaching?
There's a young man back in Portland that is kind of a surrogate son to me, and I'm teaching him self-love.
Beautiful.
Aw. May I speak?
But of course.
Okay.
You don't got to raise your
Because
hand. Just go for it.
Because you've already jumped to the second question, I'm going to give you the answers to both. I'm learning with great resistance, I must add, what to not do what doesn't feel right. And I don't mean from a moral place, just checking in with my energetics to be able to embody like this conscious leadership. I have to then develop like not act old school, like, oh, I have to do this, I should do this, therefore I'm going to do it. Right. It's a really tough lesson. I mean, it's so entrenched. So I'm learning to try and be okay with this. Doesn't feel like all my system is resisting it, so I'm just not going to do it. And I think what I'm teaching, apparently from what my team told me on a spectacular team meeting last Wednesday, is just to lean deeper and deeper and deeper into love. And it's not definitely not a hippie woo-woo thing. It's like really leaning into love is not for the faint of heart, I like to say. But apparently I'm teaching this somehow. So I'm really grateful for that. Nice. And I'm grateful for your questions and to be here. Thank you, Indy.
Thank you, Hoda. Thank you. And then we had Drew dropped in the chat, learning to grow food. All right, nice. So we have some intersectionality over here with food and regenerative practices or permaculture practice. Okay, Charlie, please continue.
Okay. So, what we like to also rethink is like who we are on this planet, right? So imagine like we're playing this game, but we actually have this idea that we have this elemental body, right? The 4 elements playing out physically in our bodies. We have this emotional spirit. We often talk about our heart space, right? Or our ability to connect with each other. And then this idea of the soulful mind, right? Where we have this ability to be conscious, but really to also have our individuality with its consciousness while being able to connect to the collective, right? Anybody want to share kind of any experiences here? Because this is, to a lot of us might be a little new to us, right? But this idea is we want to normalize that we are this greater being that has multiple ways of connecting to the multi-dimensions.
Or any like idea, or any initial like, whoa, like what's popping out to you? Like what is resonating, what's not?
I mean, imagine that we could learn this at school when we were going to school and they actually taught us this in classes.
I have something to share, but it's kind of a long story. Go ahead. I keep jumping in here. You go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarissa. Troy will go for it. So
okay. I was just going to say, for me, I mean, it helps me even you have like laying it out like this way and to see it separated, because to know that what we feel can be manifesting in different ways, but ultimately they're connected, so when I see them like laid out like this, it really helps my mind connect to my heart to tell me like, oh, okay, what am I feeling and maybe why am I feeling that way? Is it more in my body? Is it something that I'm feeling more in my heart in terms of my emotions? Or is it that that intuitive knowing, kind of like what Hoda mentioned before, which is, something I resonate with too, of like learning not to do something just because you're told to do it. Is it that intuitive feeling that's giving you something, and like learning to listen to that. So, yeah,
thank you.
That's all.
So
Well,
my story is a specific example. Go ahead. I don't want to keep jumping in front of people.
no, please, you were next.
No. Last time I jumped in front of you. You take the lead this time now, Honda.
Oh, it's the
Well,
air element already playing
we're
around
the
here.
we're the only species that we know of on planet Earth who actually watches the sunrise and the sunset. No other species has that sense of an objective individuality that allows us to be the witness whilst being spontaneously, and this is proven. Yeah, not that I have much, it means nothing to me that it's proven by science in the way that we understand science right now, but it is proven for those who do follow that paradigm. So I think that it's really important to extrapolate from that, especially in the hope of teaching children, whether in families or in schools, to extrapolate from that as to the beautiful and true and pure anthro anthropocentric nature of being. So that's what I've got to add to that. And then Sarissa, I'd love to drop in with you later about those intuitive questions. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh gosh, now how do I follow that? So I've got a specific story, something that happened. I have several practices that help me connect to and stop and pause to the intricate web that we're all connected to. And one of those practices is tarot cards. And I have a friend, we both helped each other. We were both single parents with raising two kids on our own. She had one, I had one, I had two. And we always helped each other out. Highly educated, highly motivated in business. Never talked much about her family. We talk about her son and a relationship with her son, but never about her parents. And I got a call, and she knew I did tarot, and she asked me if I'd do a tarot reading for her. And I said, sure, happy to do that. What's up? So they came over. I did a tarot reading. She asked me, "Is my mom going to be okay?" And I said, "Great, that's a specific question, and let's do it." And it was very evident by the poll that mom's not going to be okay. And so she's in Portland, Oregon, and her mom's up in Seattle, which is about a 3-hour drive north from Portland. And it was in the middle of the afternoon. And so I said, get up there, drive safely. We don't need two of you in the ER. And say what you got to say, even if she's not aware. It doesn't seem like she's conscious and able to hear what you're saying. Just whatever you need to say, go say what you need to say. And, just text me when you get there, let me know that you're safe, and good luck. And she did. I got a text about 6, and I went to bed, and it's cool. It's rainy. It's kind of cool in Portland. So I sleep with the windows open, and it was cold, and I went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, sweaty, just hot. My sheets are all wet. Their blankets are kicked off of me, and there's a red aura on the floor around me. And I'm not dreaming or hallucinating this, although I thought at first I was having a visual hallucination. Then I sat up and I noticed an old woman prone, crying on my floor. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? These are not normal things that I experience. And they looked up, the old woman looked up. It was an Asian woman, and my friend's Asian, and they were crying. And I said, "Are you Twee's mom?" And she nodded. And I said, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" And she nodded. And I said, "What?" And in sobs, she said, "Tell Twee I love her and I'm proud of her." So, she disappears, the red aura vanishes, the room goes back to cool. I look at the clock, it's like 3:20 in the middle of the morning. And I sent Twee a text and I said, call me when you get this. And so I got a call at about 7-ish in the morning. And she was like, what's up? And I could tell she was feeling a little down. And I told her what had happened. And she said her mom had passed away at 3:15. And that
Wow.
the big challenge she always had with her mom was an immigrant and an Asian tiger mother that always pushed her hard, set a bar really high. And, she saw her peers with low bars not hitting it, getting accolades from their parents and never from hers. And that was a festering wound for a long time.
That was a pretty good follow.
Yeah, and
That takes the cookie.
it's also like a great example of all three of these things, like in one, like how all three of these ideas were in that story, like how there was like this interconnectedness, there was this emotionality, but also there was like you said, you woke up hot, and there was changes in temperature that also were affecting literally our elemental body, and how that elemental body might be affected by these things that we can't explain, the unknown. Thanks, Troy, for sharing that. That was wow. Wow. To see it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So,
All right, shall we continue, Charlie?
yes. So this idea is we're really taking astrology and we're simplifying it. And I think we've all experienced a version of this, right? Where we was a Captain Planet back in the 80s. We also most recently with Harry Potter, the idea actually the 4 schools are actually the 4 elements, right? Well, we have Gryffindor being fire, we have the air element being Ravenclaw, we have Hufflepuff being water, and Earth being Slytherin, right? Represents also in the animals. And so, I want everyone to kind of take a look at this. If you know anything about your astrology, at least your sun sign, if you know more of your sun sign, it kind of also gives you, we're not here to kind of say you're just a fire sign, you're just an air sign, but actually we're learning to integrate and merge different elements together, right? So my natural element, I'm actually fire and earth together. So I meld those very well. So, the whole idea is that we're going to actually learn to hone in each of these separate skills rather than having to focus on, the one that you thought you were kind of when you grew up, and people are like, oh, you're a Virgo and that's all you are, right? Actually, we have many things. Yeah, if anybody wants to share, kind of, or if you have any questions about why, I think air signs are always the one where people ask questions about. Aries is also a fire sign, not air, so that confuses people a lot.
Charlie, why is the Taurus one start on 420?
Because that's Earth Day, of course. This is why we made
it's just a coincidence.
Yeah,
it's a coincidence. It's just a coincidence.
Obviously, be the Taurus.
Got water, air. Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Like cool. So Taurus is air, and then double Earth, right? Okay. Drew's Aquarius, air. So we got some air. We got air here. Anybody else's air? Troy's what? And so we also have like
I'm water. I'm a double water.
Double water.
With air and moon.
Interesting.
My birthday's right on the border between Pisces and Aries, and I have attributes of both. If things are cool, I'm Pisces. If you're messing with my friends, I'm Aries.
Yeah, I do notice in general in astrology, as you saw earlier, right, there was a lot of Aries and Taurus. And so a lot of times people will have a lot of energies next to each other's signs, right? And so that's really helpful to understand that cusp, people who has what's called cusp, when the sun is kind of like in between 2 energies, it's kind of like you're really good at one of the element, but then you're starting to mesh the second element together, right? And that just gives us how we're a little bit more complex than just the 4 elements. However, it kind of goes back to the idea that everything can be simplified back to the 4 elements, then to the 2, then to the 1. And that's why we talk about this idea of unity consciousness in today's modern jargon, right? But just to show even astrology, like even in your own chart, you have all 12 elements, but you have chosen to really specify some to be your greatest strength and weaknesses, right? So we talk about
Charlie, really quick, Mel has a question. She says, is there a reason for the order of signs in the guilds? Like how they're like Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, is there a reason?
they're just done actually in the actual order of the astrology. So if you go for Aries, so usually Aries, Gemini, Cancer, and Taurus are like the first 4 elements that you encounter in the chart. They're not necessarily in order. However, I did do it where it's kind of hard to see, but the borders of them are different. So around Aries, it's called a cardinal sign. The border is a little bit different versus like around the fixed sign Leo, it's a very solid border. And then around Sagittarius is like a little dashed outline. And they're very subtle, but the subtleties actually gives them their differences, right? And so as you learn, so like today we'll focus on the air element, but the air element, Gemini, right? It's represents more of this mutable energy, so it can take a lot of different forms. Libra is tries to always be balanced. So this is always a counter to whatever they think about, right? And then Aquarius is all about being super innovative. And so the air element becomes more and more intense, right? So in the beginning, Gemini, it's kind of like meant to be whispers of ideas. In Libra energy, there's a lot of weight to what they do, and they don't play with like the more like the simple thoughts and ideas. Their ideas are more refined, right? And that's like that like Libra energy. But even with all of this structure of like understanding information in the air signs, Aquarius comes and says, I'm gonna change all of it and make it all new again. Like, that's why Aquarius is all about like tornado type energy that like comes in, and anything that is not held together down on the ground is gonna go away. And then now you're gonna have to rebuild something to make sure that it's grounded, right? And so Aquarius energy can come in very strongly, but it really brings in fresh air, fresh energy when things are stagnant. So they just kind of represent each and all 3 signs. I mean, all 4 elements, the 3 signs, each have their own personalities in those elements. And that's how we're able to kind of look at the 12 signs as really the 4 elements, just done in a different different form. And so we don't have a lot of our guild members today, but today we have Sarissa, Indy, and myself, and we're kind of representing some of the the main team here of Cosmic Labyrinth, and we're trying to create play shops and working with different people to also kind of come in and see what kind of play shops we can build around the 4 elements. And so everything we do is a form of the 4 elements, but we haven't recognized it. And so because of that, we're just trying to find a way to get everybody to understand, like, instead of like language right now, right? Language, we have this 26 alphabet of the English language that allows us to create sentences and grammar for us to communicate. So the 4 elements, imagine that's our way to understand our reality and our physical reality, and how we talk about, how we do things in our own reality, because then we have different strengths and weaknesses. So when we work in teams, when we start, and this is where we can find like the reason why maybe a lot of us aren't working together is because we don't know how to understand ourselves to work with other people to form really awesome X-Men team, right? Because the idea is that X-Men probably chose, you don't want all the leaders in one group, right? They should be leading their own little team of like people who don't want to lead but are really good at listening and
Charlie, it's also like sometimes how like it's recognizing like where we need to have forgiveness, or like where somebody is not like vibing at the right level. What's going on? What is their element that they're imbalanced in, and how can we support that rather than getting offended by like actually things not matching up?
Exactly. And so I love for us to
I also feel too, it's important to recognize that as we develop this and we continue to grow and build this culture, like really we're creating a cosmic culture. And so when we build this cosmic culture, can we also integrate science into this? But let's approach science from the elements. Maybe how the early scientists were, the scientists from the 12, 13, 1400s, right? They were really, really deep into elements and understanding the natural world through elements. And so maybe we're coming back that knowledge information that's actually indigenous. Almost every culture around the world connects to science and understanding the world through the elements as well. So we're just kind of remembering that. And so Cosmic Labyrinth is a way for us to remember how to look at science in a way that also makes sense to us, because that's within us. The same elements that are outside are inside of us. And right now we have a big disconnection between that we're like separate from the outside world, and that's causing a lot of suffering, it seems.
Exactly. So I'd love for everyone to join us here. Just put in the link. We're going to be kind of heartstorming what the air element represents to us, right? And so I'd love for everyone to join. And you guys can all see it here, right? Anything we put in, we'll be able to share with everyone. So to access, you can click here for text. You can pick a text here, really cool text on here. You can then also go to elements. So for air, again, we can type in oxygen, see if there's any images that looks like oxygen here we can use.
And so you guys, you're welcome to play with it, like go for it. Like there's no, we're play enthusiasts. So you could be one of those kids. I'm like one of those kids who would just start doing those stuff, before the teacher said go. Like you guys are welcome. I'm not gonna disparage that. That's totally fine.
And so maybe we want to focus on like the strength of what air element represents, right? When we say, you're part of the air element, what are some strengths?
Is that a question right now?
Yeah.
Like, what are some strengths of the air element?
And if you tell me, I can put stuff in there too in real time. So let me know.
Yeah, because I'm like a digital technological dud. I mean, honestly, it's amazing that I can be on this call right now. So if anybody wants to, just like back in school, if somebody wants to team up with me and I can give you the ideas, share my ideas and someone else can implement, because I suck at that currently.
Hoda, just go ahead and say it out loud and somebody will put it in.
Yeah, I think that one of the strengths of the air element is actually, I mean, from my experience of both having my moon in Gemini and having several Aquarians in my circle, is they're able to, on a very high etheric level, move quite swiftly and understand things quite simultaneously, like in a detailed manner and from the 30,000 foot view. So sort of etheric insight, if you will, ability to comprehend, is I think, and of course very creative, what I've come across.
I found a guy with a light bulb inside of his head. Is that etheric insight?
Yeah, we could think of that like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I always think, I find, I should say, that people who are heavy on the air, like they are really good at thinking of things on a whim, and being able to kind of transition and go with the flow, and maybe connect dots that people didn't see that were connected the whole time, because they're able to kind of swiftly go back and forth between things.
Yes.
Yeah, I also see like there's like something about like movement with air too, right? Like it's like a powerful, it's like what gives the electrons, like their ability.
And I always also think of like the throat chakra, like the wind, like our wind instruments, our voices, you know.
Oh, how did I
Um,
not put the flute in there?
I
Boom.
love that you brought up the throat chakra because we have a chakra chai. We have two products for the throat chakra, and its element is air. And the way we formulated them is so that it actually supports the upper respiratory tract. And then, like we've activated them with these frequencies, sonic frequencies. And I don't know how the hell this thing works. I mean, just on a side note, if I may, but I've literally done small focus groups, and people who have like verbal diarrhea have shut up for like 10 minutes,
Whoa.
and people who were really clammed up, like this like 55-year-old man who was really clammed up in this small focus group we did back in Europe, he suddenly like started to share really deep childhood experiences and traumas and everything in a group of a bunch of strangers, and he's not typically like that,
Wow,
right?
that's amazing.
So I think, yeah, anything that can support to support the balance of our elements, right, is welcomed. So we get the superpower of the element rather than the uglies.
In some situations, these are weaknesses too.
Aha.
perspective.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
Aha.
we're talking about weaknesses. Are we just focusing on strength?
Let's go ahead and go. That's a really good transition into weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed with air folks, like you said, they shoot from the hip. They go really quick, pick information up, find the solution, and want to move forward. And in group teamwork, where you've got a curmudgeonist or a woefully ignorant person that's just put their heels in and stopping things, they can be a little impatient with that type of character.
Yeah, everyone has to learn how the wind works, right? Because it can blow in many directions, but when just like using it for energy, in terms of wind power, we have to learn how to harness the wind, and that's what our voices teach us, is that our words are really powerful if we understand how to dictate them. And that little flower that I just put on there, this little blue guy, is super cool. It's the butterfly pea flower, which is really wonderful for the brain and concentration, your vision, right? But it also correlates to the throat chakra because of this beautiful blue color. Because when you have clarity in your mind, it gives you a sense of what you need to say. And what's really cool about this flower is it's one of the most rare colors in nature, but also when you add a citrus, it starts to turn purple. And if you keep adding citrus, it begins to turn pink. So what this tells me, at least, is what I just feel in terms of esoteric or like spiritual herbalism practices, what you do with your voice, and then when you learn how to use it, you can add to it, to that voice, to that vision, that clarity, you begin to elevate not only from your throat chakra up to the your crown and beyond, right, with the purple and then the pink. It elevates your life when you learn how to harness the energy of your voice and then dictate it into its physical manifestation. You begin to ascend. So it's the power of the voice, because it's the most powerful thing that we have is our voice, is learning how to harness our wind, because it's the most invisible power that we have, and no one really teaches us that we have it. But it's one of the only things that we can control is our voice.
Hey, go, Hoda.
Let me in there with my voice. That is spectacular information. Thank you so much. And I'll do one of my haughty takes on that, because what's interesting for me in terms of the can we call it something like chemoesotericism or esochemistry, or of what you're saying, like the esoterics of elements and foods and the chakras, is when you're adding citrus, so you're adding, let's say, lemon, right? Okay, so what this immediately makes me feel and think is you're adding acid, you're adding a purifier. And to be able to actually contain and work with when life gives you lemons, right? To be able to work with the acid of life, it becomes a purifier, and that purification takes you, as you said, to the purple, which is the crown chakra, which is spirit, and then it takes you to pink, which is the heart, actually. So
Some would say that green is the heart, so we get
well,
back
yes,
and
it
forth
is,
on
but
that.
it's, you know, they should also show the green with the pink in the middle, you know. So I think that I don't know. That's just for me. It's like the purifying aspect of how when you're able to hold that, which is sour or cutting, and harness it, then it just strips away what is no longer necessary or not kind or untrue, and allows for the transcendence.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. It really inspired me. Thank you.
I feel like Mel is gonna say something. Mel?
Oh, did I unmute myself? By accident? Yeah. No, I just was I had been flipping through some herbal, medicine or whatever, but the picture I have, which I'll upload to the guild, the air guild or whatever, was this Manuka honey, which is the same kind of flavoring as the blue, and I do think the air is throat chakra vibes. So I was just contemplating how I could get a photo into the air guild. So that was more my, technically I was just like, oh, this is cool, maybe I can get a photo in here.
I think if you have a photo like on your end, you can go to uploads on this sidebar.
Oh yeah. I was just getting there. So yeah, I was so anyway, multi-dimensional things happening at the same time.
It's very
But
airy. That's very airy of you.
very airy of me. And then just the word for this one for me is always pleasure. Wind is like air is like a pleasure vibes. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
And so so at the if you guys see, I added another page where we can kind of also bring up the other sides of the air element, like all the elements, and like most things in the universe, there's this beautiful oscillation between yin and yang, happening all the time. So where do we see the air guild? Where do we see the air space being where do we see the social issues? Where are the challenges happening? Whether they're individual challenges or they're collective challenges, where are we noticing that? And we could also talk about it while we're doing this. But obviously I put in AI, and that's probably a very important thing right now that we could have a whole discussion on. But actually, really, for what we're doing here with Cosmic Labyrinth is we're creating the reverse AI, right? We're like, how do we integrate it? For us, it's like, how do we approach AI but have it be something that supports us and supports our relationship with nature, right? And so who's making the AI? Who's programming it? So what if heart-centered people like all of you are creating the AI? What would happen? What kind of AI would we create? So
It wouldn't take over the world.
I
Right?
don't know if it's I don't know if we would, I mean, I can't speak for all of us. I don't know if I would create the AI. I think that if we really go to the root of it, there are multiple sources from which the desire to develop the AI stem. And one aspect of it is the lack of recognition for the perfection of the intelligence of the ecology of the human being, as is the mechanics, the system, the programming, the hardware and the software that is this being human is the highest form of intelligent life. And actually how we've messed up is indicative of the subtle complexity of our natures that actually gives rise to the vulnerability to be able to mess up. In any case, I'm as you might be picking up, I'm very, very, very anti-AI. And
I think it's important to differentiate IQ from EQ, and Does everybody understand like emotional intelligence and analytical IQ intelligence? And artificial intelligence can do IQ, and it's getting better at it. It sucks at EQ, and it's going to suck for a long time. I'm highly EQ and a little lower on the IQ, and I can appreciate an assistant when I don't have a teammate to help me out with the IQ stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, this is where, being able to actually recognize, what is it in EQ that we need, right? Because I think what's happened is a lot of us don't understand EQ in general. And so to go and make an AI, it's kind of funny. It's like to make an AI is kind of like, to me, the male's version of making someone that's going to come in to help us, where women are actually creating real life, right? So the idea of AI is really interesting because if we're not coming at it with the emotional part of it, it's reflecting kind of like all the dark side of our own shadows, right? And that's why, like, for us being able to face our own shadows, so that when we do create something, it's created out of love rather than out of like a necessity, right? The idea of artificial for weapons is always a very common thing that this is kind of like the idea, even in today's modern conversations, of how to protect ourselves using AI or something.
Well, there's also the reality, while we're on the air topic, there's also the reality of anything that you put into the world, whether it's a child or art or artificial intelligence, that it will take on a life of its own. Because even though we can put things out there with really beautiful intentions and maybe program it to do a certain thing or think a certain way or feel a certain way, eventually it will morph and it will take on a life and become an entity of its own. So I think that is something that in the long run, it will take the winds of change and it will shift in many different ways. And so that's also something to just be aware of. And so I think that is also the almost the scary aspect, right, of AI that we all feel or have encountered or will encounter, is that it's something that the winds of change, we just don't know, and change can be scary. So the unknown can be frightening, if you will.
For me, it's great. I think, I don't know who put censorship on there, but right now, like at the most immediate issue with AI, or even this air, the issues with the air and the movement of air, is that it's not fully allowed, right? Like there's like conversations that are not allowed. I mean, I remember even during the past couple of years, like sharing something that was happening in India, it was getting censored, or trying to have a debate about vaccinations or not, or whatever. Like even having a debate, like having conversations where people can understand why they're doing it, wasn't even allowed, right? Like, so I think right now, like even that's a low-hanging fruit for this, is like, how do we create spaces where the air can flow, right? Where the truth can rise from the air flowing, right? Rather than being like, no, your air is too scary, so you can't bring your air in here, but like we have to bring all of our air together. So anyways, I'm very particular on that one, because I think AI is real. It's already doing it. Like there's so much AI that's just blocking and censoring conversations on social media. So we do need to come together in these kind of spaces, and maybe even more, maybe in physical spaces where we could talk about things and literally let the air move. But does anybody have anything to say on that with censorship? I mean, I can go off on that because I've experienced it.
Well, I mean, I also think that that's that has always existed and that will continue to exist, right? So I think that in the spirit of the air element, I will also say that it's also in my opinion, it's like our duty to also to give it that extra air, if you will, to give it to almost confuse the AI, right? Like, how do we use it in such a way where we don't let it completely control our narrative? And remember that we are its master, right? It is not real life, it is artificial intelligence. So we can actually trick those algorithms, right? And give it a good air treatment and throw it somewhere else, or we're doing something else, because because like it will take on a mind of its own, and yes, it is already being done, so I understand and honor the fact that it's happening whether we like it or not, so we might as well have some kind of a hand in it, but not to do it blindly, because to do that would be ignorant, because it is, like I said, you can put all the best intention you want, but it doesn't mean that someone will not come in and use that same technology with a different intention. So how do we have kill?
The
And
scary thing that I see happening right now is the race to the win. All of them that are developing at a rapid pace, and regulation and risk assessment usually follows the laws that govern that usually follows after something's created. And that's because they see problems come up and regulation is needed. This is going so exponentially. It's like exponentially fast that they really need to slow down. Everybody needs to slow down and think about the ethical impacts of it, and how it could impact our world in a negative way.
What's that, Mel? What are you putting in there?
The yellow brick road?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I am putting the yellow brick road or whatever, which leads to, I guess, this imaginary place that's supposed to be like magical, and instead of remembering exactly where you are all the time, I don't know, that's the challenge I think we face in this, and we're going to experience they're in production on the this, I guess, the musical version with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande of Wicked, which turns the concept of what you think, everything you're thinking is obviously a form of something that's not true, in essence. So you're always kind of returning to, I think that's our challenge, like some, strong opinions and such are valid and healthy and part of the ecosystem, things that are not supposed to communicate and stuff, like, you don't plant things with other things because they actually are natural like enemies and stuff, but you still need them because they actually heal a part of the ecosystem. So it's like these conversations need the whole picture, and obviously I've been, not obviously, but the conversation of tech and the media entertainment technology universe, which is now like kind of always bubbles up to, now one or five like major parties are always acquiring what they cannot produce on their own in the current system. So I have been for years, just, I don't know what it means, I don't know we've aligned in this ecological renaissance, whatever that story is, but I've just been saying all systems love or whatever. It's like all of it's welcome, which is a therapy thing, but you gotta like communicate as a collective. And I don't know, we've been working on different things, but all ideas are welcome. And I just always think the challenge is remembering like we're rocking, and the cosmic chaos is actually part of the process. So that's why I put the yellow brick road. I don't know, it came up pretty quickly on Canva, so gotta love the availability of the imagery.
It's also
what's another thing?
There's another.
I
that
have I hate to at one and the same time, I hate to be the doomsday or naysayer, or but and come in with a hammer of metaphoric hammer of kinds of sorts, but first, how we're doing what we're doing right now in this present moment amongst us, right, is a testament to the subtle, complex beauty of the human being, and the ability to have compassionate and empathic discourse and dialogue that allows for critical thinking capacities to be instilled if they're not there, and be nurtured if they are there, for sure, to merely exist at the very least, right? However, whilst us 7 beautiful humans are doing this, right, there are laboratories, billion-dollar budgets, governments, military, scientists, corporations who are every day and night without sleeping in an incredibly organized and systematic way, marching forward with AI based on what they want to bring in and usher into the world, right? So for me, there is something about to ensure that, I think as Martin Luther King, God rest his soul, had said something along the lines of, until those who wish for peace become as organized as those who wish for war, we will never see peace, right? So to rid ourselves in the spirit of truth, in the spirit of the air element that we're saying, of any kind of naivete about what's going on, right? Because I have people in my personal circle who are working in genetics, and they're already crossbreeding and experimenting with AI and chips in creepy crawlies and insects and animals, etc., etc. So really, this is, and they're not doing it. The lowest hanging fruit or the narrative is also that you can be able to upload your shit to Instagram in a more, easy way, or it'll help assist in writing your school essay or any of that. But actually, it's not coming from there. There is a military and financial objective to this, and I think we need to be. I'm sure all of you are very aware of it, but I don't want to pussyfoot around that. I want to cut to the chase.
So one of the things with that is that, it's, if you look at nature, there is this consistent theme that if you have diversity in nature, the ecosystem thrives, and the less you take away the diversity, the less it thrives. It may also be the same when it comes to AI, right? And when we say artificial intelligence, like, once again, we're the ones creating the artificial intelligence, but how much diversity is there? Are people like us making the AI? Are we programming the AI? What if we were? What if that created the diversity in the ecosystem that exists in the ethereal realm, right? With this internet that we've created, right? What if we create more diversity there, right? And right now, yes, there are, you're right, there's organizations that are doing stuff, and yeah, we definitely have to acknowledge that. At the same time, we can also be developing technologies that might might become like saints, like saint AIs, right? That actually teach the bad AIs. They're like, hey, look, hey, whatever you're doing, you need to fix yourself up. But you never know, right? What if there is an AI that, I'm actually writing a short story right now about an AI that becomes a saint, right? And just the idea that what if it learns that it wants to be a saint? It learns from the saints of human history. So something for us to think about is creating diversity. We're right here. This is the part of why we're here right now. And also, yeah, we're not gonna we can't ignore the truth. The truth is there's some really nefarious actors, and a lot of them are miserable. Like, when you think about people creating stuff like this, they're really creating it from a place of misery. Are they connecting with nature? Are they going on walks and experiencing the ocean or experiencing the birds? Probably not.
Yeah,
Well,
every great technological scientific discovery that we've made has come with great power to do both good and harm. And so, after the atomic, the atom was split, there was a worldwide consensus of, hey, pause, think about this, and there's been conversation, and we've waned and waxed between success along the lines of nuclear disarmament. And I am confident that that'll follow this as well. It's just this is moving so fast that we really need to get out in front of it.
well, I also think that, in like how Hoda was saying, she gave the beautiful quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, and I think that the answer, the answer is also in the statement itself. We are the agents of peace, and the only way that we can actually be in the game and help sway those winds of change is if we're in it as well. I'm not saying that we need to, I know it's not like I'm saying, okay, everyone flood in with the AI. No, and not at all. I think over the years, seeing both sides of this discussion play out over and over and over again, both in New York and then now in Hawaii, is has made me still worry and understanding the reality of the situation of AI, but also understanding kind of like how Indy was saying, we can create things that also counter that, right? We can be those agents of change and create peace with those same systems, because you got to fight fire with fire, right? So using that, yeah, just using it in the best way that we can. Now, I will also say, when I believe it was Troy who was saying something before about the, the ethics and the morals of everything. And yeah, things have been speeding up. Every decade, it gets faster and faster. Every generation has more of a gap in terms of where we were at that time and space with the generation before us now, with everything advancing so quickly. And I think, it reminds me of almost like wind burn, right? It's like when things are going so quickly, but it kind of burns you because we're not really aware of the consequences of our actions, right? And so that's why it's so important, I think, as the creators to be able to not well, yeah, control the AI, yes, but to have that kill switch, right? To have maybe another counterpart of the AI that is your saint or whatever, your moral ethics keeper. Just as we as a society have had people who in royal courts and societies, etc., were their role was to keep the ethics and to keep the traditions alive. I think that also counts when we're world building and creating this world of artificial intelligence, is to also have maybe an AI who is keeping track of that. Where are the artificial intelligence discoveries going? Where did they start and what do we have now? Because there's certainly been people who don't even know what they're doing, but just enjoy the creative freedom of building things. But I think that we have to be the gatekeepers ourselves to what we allow into our lives. And we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves. So seeing what we can do to contribute in a good way.
Has anybody seen the TED talk of those two individuals that pulled the sheet back on social media and showed the negative impact? And then they did another one on AI recently. And what really I learned from it is changes recently have been exponential. This one is an exponential on an exponential. It is a step above, and they did a demonstration and kind of with their understanding of technology, what could be happening in another 2 years if we don't ask everybody who's trying to develop it to slow down, take pause, and do the due diligence to do risk assessment and put regulations in place that protect humanity and the earth.
Well, we see how much that's asking those people worked in terms of slowing down, doing due diligence and doing testing for the COVID vaccines, right? So, I mean, I've just been, I want to be able to show up really authentically here. Given my own personal political history and having seen what happens when we have wishful thinking, 40 years later, you have
kill all mosquitoes in the area in 90 seconds.
You have a nation who I mean, it's just I've been at the receiving end, witnessing what happens in situations when things are moving very, very fast, and we are creating beautiful philosophical narratives around how we can be participants in this new reality, how we can potentially even be masters in this reality. It's not going to happen like that. And I hate to put out word spells myself, but this is just that it is not going to, it is exponential on top of exponential. And we can't, like, how are we, aside from the hackers, how are we able to get around the censorship or reduce the censorship on the internet? We haven't been able to do that, right?
So, and I'd like for us to continue discussion. I mean, this is kind of like a really big, you open up Pandora's box to a lot of issues
Yeah,
we're having
we've got to come
currently.
back to this.
Yeah,
It needs
well,
its
it's
own-
not even the idea of coming back, but the whole, what we're trying to do is that, yes, there are huge tornadoes that are already in, vortexes are actually playing out in the world, but it shows that even the air signs, you just need a few small vortexes to pull away the big vortex and then to change things, right? And so what we're trying to do is, like, I'm not going to go to Washington, D.C. to do anything that I can't do. I mean, that's like, we're not going to ask everybody to go in front of these, like, you know, bigger tornadoes. Say, go figure it out yourself. What we can do is actually, as a small tornadoes, you know, building in our own local community, we will shift and we will change our attention to something that is more harmonious. And so we've talked about this idea even in frequencies, right? We can do a harmonics, but you put in you know, another sound chord and it starts to resonate, right? Even though you didn't hit it. So the idea is all of us, when we do resonate to our highest vibration, you know, we will kind of drown out what is the darker thing, because they are organized. That is exactly why we are struggling, because all we think is like, you know, by ourselves, we're supposed to be this chosen one. No, actually, we're all together supposed to be the collective chosen one, right? And so that's why, like, we love this idea of the four elements. Like, how do we say, you know, we're going to create our own Captain Planet based on us gathering together and using our skills, right? So, you know, where the air signs may be really good at like talking to people about things, you know, telling them to go sit down and like build things, it's probably torture to them, right? Because they're really good at going out there speaking to everyone about these ideas. And so this idea of censorship, but what we're trying to do too is learn your four elements of alchemy the best you can, and then let's work together in small projects and let's start affecting our reality, right? As if this is a Minecraft world and we're all players that have been given these gifts, right? So the guild represents that. And so, you know, the air element is one of many problems. And what we show next is continuing.
Hey, before you jump off of air, there was one more challenge that I noticed air signs have, and that is they tend to, you know, as we mentioned, they process information and they tend to understand at a very quick pace and know in depth topics and can understand and explain them quickly. And perception is everything. And people that are not like that can sometimes view them as arrogant. And it's good to be kind of aware of that, because you're not, the air sign's not arrogant. They're actually legitimate knowledge they have. But because of that difference, sometimes it's perceived as arrogant. And knowing that that might be going on, knowing what the other sign is that might perceive an air sign that way, as an air person, it would be helpful to stop and ask for input, you know, to kind of show, hey, you've got intelligence and I'm relying on you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this next piece is kind of, you know, addressing Hoda's conversation a little bit deeper, right? Because we all understand there's something deeper, but I love, Indy, if you would be
There is a darkness spreading all over the world, engulfing humanity and nature. This darkness, we do not know when or how it began or what it is, but we do know that it steals and hides the elemental wisdom from all of us. Maybe you felt it when you're at school or university, or maybe in a grocery store or mall, or maybe at a church or in a laboratory, or maybe you are triggered by the news or the government. The darkness revels in our confusion and fear. Choose your destiny to become a cosmic alchemist of the elements and bring light to the darkness, so that we may restore the elemental spirits within us and all around us. Before we begin our cosmic quest, we must learn about ourselves and our connection to the elemental spirits through elemental guides and apprenticeships. We'll do this with the help of our spirit animals and the elemental senseis, who guide us towards our own elemental self-mastery. We are the sons and daughters of the elements, and it's our duty to bravely face the four shadow riders that have brought darkness into our world. Ooh, four shadow riders.
Woo-hoo! I love that storytelling.
So these shadow pillars and shadow riders are in the world already. Like, Hoda, you brought them up. We're not gonna pretend like they're not there. We're gonna actually, like, not only are we gonna like acknowledge that they're there, but we're gonna even add another element of playfulness so that we can actually deal with them and not burn out from dealing with them, right? Because right now, when you try to think about dealing with these shadow pillars, these shadow riders, it's a quick burnout, quick path to burnout. So go ahead, Charlie.
Exactly. And we kind of don't want to bring like the boss level 50 to people when they're just starting out the game, right? And so this idea is we're kind of creating level progression so that everyone, because that's the goal, is that everyone can be an alchemist and be able to manifest their own reality. No one will be buying into all this deep, dark corruption that we're really managing, right? And so today we talked about the air elements, but that was one of the dark elements, right? So we talk AI. But here in our game, we actually talk about the 4 elements and how they each have their own darkness, right? So when we talk about the values of fire and be able to speak up, you know, how many times have we been told like, hey, don't speak up, right? That's the energy also of military, right? The military, the guns, you know, that's a conversation of defense and protection. You know, today we talked about the air element, and I think it's the conversation of censorship, but also the misinformation, using words to confuse people so that they become apathetic, right? What has happened when we get so many words and now we're so confused that you're like, I don't even want to deal with this because it's just too confusing, right? And that's the element also of the air element. So the focus is really to create some, you know, really focus our skill development. But
Did you say focus? Did you say focus?
Yes, we need to focus.
Focus.
The idea of like co-creating play shops, right? We all been to school where they tell us who to be. And so we've never been able to really be curious about these elemental energies that we have, right? Being able to face our own inner shadows, right? As an earth sign, I like to be grounded, but sometimes like I get so grounded, I'm not really fun, right? You're like, oh, Charlie, you're doing the same thing over and over again. Well, yes, expect that from me. I'm an earth sign. They're like, no, that's really boring. So we learn to, you know, you want to be very exciting in, you know, like if I was giving you guys like a slide and I was just reading from it, that's really boring, right? Compared to like me being able to like speak up. And so I use my own fire elements to keep things pretty energetic rather than reading like this. So the next piece of the slide, right? And so we can use our own abilities to understand when we have weaknesses. How do we embellish a little bit of our strength so we can avoid getting kind of stuck in our weaknesses, right?
Or
I
asking
caution-
or go ahead, Trey.
Oh,
I would caution not to focus too much on your weaknesses. I think we find more success on amplifying where we're strong and partnering where we're weak.
right.
Yes,
Right.
try to improve your weakness a little bit,
Well,
but
it's also the idea
don't
of not
like
hiding it. 'Cause
obsess
I
about
think,
it.
yeah, I think a lot of times people don't like to be vulnerable and they don't like to talk about it. And so they hide it. And so what happens if you have a conversation, hey, I was asking you, can you do that? Well, I tried to, but, and then they hide the fact that they can't do it. Where you say, hey, I'm not really good at this. You think you can help me with this? Because like, that's not my strong suit. You know what? I know a guy who's like really good at this. Let us get that done so that you don't get stuck, right? And so we're not saying that weaknesses are bad. We're just saying weaknesses are part of how we collaborate, right? And how we find other people who are really strong in those pieces. And so, you know, this idea is we really, you know, we see it all of us in the spiritual community. We see it in so many different places. It's about level progression, right? Being able to know yourself, then be able to know yourself in the community. So the idea is we're creating play shops to then re-emphasize things that we are already doing. We're all magicians, but people now say, hey, because you know how to use a computer, you're kind of like a computer geek. So that's not magical powers. That's just, you just learn how to do that. To people who don't know how to use a computer, it looks like you're doing magic. Every time you're like, look, the computer did all this stuff. You're like, wow, that's magical, right? So we're just really trying to like bring our life back into a very like fun, mystical way to really be curious about our own abilities. And so this next piece is really where we were really going deeper into it is that there is an organized dark force that is kind of causing us a lot of issues, right? I mean, we talk when we talk about food, right? It's not just the AI that's affecting our own freedom of mind. We have food that is affecting our own ability to have our body eating the right elements, right? The idea that we had to wear a mask, talking about air elements, we were reduced, you know, we were told to reduce our amount of oxygen we could take in. And what do we know about oxygen, right? The oxygen actually makes us more alkaline versus acidic, and more growth happens in an alkaline body when you have more oxygen. So there is organized concepts that are trying to affect our just simple 4 elements, right? Even with water. I mean, we have plenty of conversations about why our water is just so terrible and we're not getting nourished through our water. And so this is kind of where we really go back to this idea of how do we address the shadows in our community? Because each of our small communities experience a version of this small problem, right? And so it's really about how do we in our own community gather together so we can kind of hold our own space. And so eventually everybody here kind of will be able to have their own battle, right? And so going back to this is another idea of expressing the four elements. It's a more ethereal conversation. It's not so grounded, right? Because the earth sign likes to say, hey, if I can't see your powers, they don't exist. Actually, we all know this emotional in EQ, right? Emotional qualities that you can't even express that. You can only, see the after effects of having someone, being nourishing and very caring towards you. And so basically what we're, trying to do together as a group is trying to do a quest to community. And so as we find places where we need to bring in more water, more earth, more air, even the conversation today, the idea of artificial intelligence, that's a community issue. And so what are some ways that we can create quests that maybe we can write AI that show, the reflection of their emotional quality, right? I mean, that could be a fun quest.
Actually, Charlie, like, for like that event that we did in Santa Monica where we had the sound bath and the gathering, right, on the public park, that was a great example of like the opposite of AI. Like we use technology to bring everybody together, complete strangers, people had never done a sound bath before, never meditated before. We're all in community. Even people walking by were joining us. But it all started from the virtual space. Like we use the virtual space to inform coming together in physicality and actually taking care of the space and feeding each other and nourishing everyone. But I do want to throw in there too, Charlie, really quick. We got Mick here. I saw Mick came in. I wanted to like let everybody know like it's good for us to share our wins too. So Mick and the Cosmic Labyrinth are presenting got hired by the Bhakti Fest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bhakti Fest, but got hired by Bhakti Fest, which is a festival that happens at Joshua Tree. Mick, will you explain more about what's going to be happening? Like, what's the deal, and how that's an example of a quest that we can do that actually is like not just a one-time quest. It can be an ongoing quest. So yeah, please, Mick.
Yeah, I certainly would do that. Yeah, I've been enjoying the conversation. I'm in the car and my phone may die soon. But yeah, so if it cuts out in the middle of my explanation, you'll have to imagine the rest. Yeah, use your air element to imagine the rest. Yeah, we're doing a workshop on regenerative agriculture at the Bhakti Fest, but really within the framework of giving back to the land there. So doing seva for this land that's hosted the Bhakti Fest for over 10 years. I think it's been going on for 13 years. And really thinking about how, for the first time, this festival can create something that continues on for the rest of the year at that site and then can be built upon in future years, starting off with just composting all the food waste that is produced at festivals like this, and then also creating some bioswales, maybe part of the workshops, playshops while we're out there. I haven't been out to the site yet, so we're still kind of deciding, but the fundamental part will be thinking about compost as a kind of multi-species relationship that we can cultivate, really thinking about the diversity, like you mentioned earlier, Indy, creating diversity in the soil with the microbial diversity, the fungal species, the worms and nematodes and arthropods, all of that's fundamental to creating fertility at pretty much any site around the planet, but also really thinking about what's appropriate for that site, because it's in Joshua Tree. So we're not going to try to like grow a bunch of water hungry plants out there in future years. So yeah, it'll be a wonderful way to get yogis out there digging and bringing compost back to their own homes. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that's a great example of how we can hack spaces, right? Because here's a festival that has been going on for 13 years, but they have never left the place better than than when they did the festival. And so many festivals are like, so many conferences are like that. But when do you ever go to a regenerative conference where they're actually like, so like, how can we start to do conferences? How can we start hacking these spaces, but making the places better? And maybe it's through regenerative practices where we're bringing fertility back to the soil, or just like supporting the ecosystems there to thrive. But maybe it's also reminding human beings about their relationship to the earth, their relationship to the elements as well. That might have communicative effects where they live too, right? Like, because Mick, like, people come from all over the world for this festival, right? So,
Well, both, right? And first of all, congratulations on that. And I would really, really, really love to be a part of that. We were actually supposed to be, well, they wanted us to be at Bhakti Fest last year, but it was a really pivotal time, like transitional time at Chakrachai, so we couldn't be there. And in the meantime, with Mick, I don't know your background. Are you actually a soil scientist? Are you in? You're in regen ag, obviously, or regeneration of soil.
Mick is a multi-dimensional artist, scientist, but also more than anything else, he combines art and science as a big-time educator, working with, you know, like teens here in LA, and does a lot of stuff, and has also like exhibited his art at art shows, even
Amazing.
At
Yeah. Well, so the art that I've done has really all been about ecology and microbial life. So this is an evolution of that. And I've really been in permaculture and regenerative agriculture for just 2 years now, as kind of the next step, having taken some courses. And but I mean, I grew up on a farm and did a lot of this stuff without it being called regenerative agriculture in Colorado too. So
Mick, do you make art out of fungi?
I'm a fun guy that makes art.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
I went to the Hawaiian Mushroom Festival this past weekend, and one of the guys that presented there makes art out of the fruit of fungus, out of mushrooms.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing work with fungi and mycelium. I have been doing that with my students. Actually, I've been encouraging them and helping them build sculptures with fungi, and I did a little of that in grad school, but I never really showed it. Worked more with microbes to create electricity, microbial fuel cells, and then looking at like microbial diversity as a practice, and using microscopes for performances and all of that. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're working together with a really incredible soil scientist and regenerative farmer called Ian Hunter. And he makes really a spectacular, I have to say, with like all the testing and everything that he's done on it, like microbial probiotic, mycelium networked to the hilt compost that basically like resurrects the land within like 30 to 60 days. And he has a farm up in Goleta, where he's putting in regenerative inputs for Chakrachai. And so I would really, really, really love to see if there's any way to collaborate on this. This could be an amazing way to actually show the intersectionality of the infrastructure, agricultural, ecological aspects going into the human being, the intersection of the customer, okay, or the human being, the end product, and then the culture of the art, right? So we could really create an amazing circuit right there.
You piqued my interest. Could you put a link in the chat on this dude you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
cool beans. Thanks.
I'd love to see the link, and also continue the conversation about collaboration. Yeah, so it is definitely a Cosmic Labyrinth production. It's they asked for like a bio and a headshot, and we're just like, well, it's kind of a collaborative thing, but we're still kind of dealing with those models of like, you know, individuals versus collectives in society and in the arts and yoga circles as well. It's like there's always a need to put like one person's head on something, right? But yeah, let's do that, and then adjust as needed to the number of collaborators that are involved. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a for us. This is a model of what we can bring to other festivals and other things. I mean, once we do it, we're like, look, we'll do it at all these other things, and it can continue building the Cosmic Labyrinth community. Because who knows who will show up at the festival? It might even be headliners that we get them to be humble, and maybe it is an artist or a musician, and they're like, wow, I never did this before, but I want to do this now, where I live. So, anyways, continue, Charlie.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of going right into what we're talking about, right? We're finding our own kind of ways to build communities together, and then kind of integrating them and really modularized communities. So we can also, like, as we do these conversations, a lot of people come in and say, "Hey, we would love to sync up with you," right? So it's really trying to become much more proactive in creating like better groups together, and and really, the whole idea is just we're trying to create empowered leaders. Let us all be the one doing the work out there instead of like hoping somebody else is going to fix it, where you just go and donate money, right? Let's get everyone to show up. So that's kind of our goal. Really excited to share with you guys kind of like a journey. We'd love for you guys to join us. We do this monthly, and we go through all the different elements. And so we might kind of go back to the different element in the next following months, because I think the collaborative side has been really helpful. So I really want us to kind of develop that further. And so here we have a survey that we'll kind of add it to the chat here, so everyone can just
survey. No.
submit your survey.
Oh, I don't want to do the survey. No, I don't will. I refuse. Mick, do you ever have to give surveys to your students at the end of class? Like, it's like the worst feeling for me. I'm like, all right, can you fill out this survey? And please don't say anything mean about me.
Yeah, sometimes we do. I don't like it either, but I'm lucky because I'm more of like a makerspace coordinator, and so I facilitate like fun hands-on activities and rarely have to do the survey thing.
Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky.
Yeah.
I always get caught there, and like if I'm getting like if I'm getting like contracted out, like the contractor's always like, yeah, make sure they fill out the surveys. And I'm like, but they're having fun. Like, I don't want to like, I want to leave the I want them to leave the class inspired, not like, oh, I had to do a survey at the end of the class, the paradoxes, right? So hopefully our surveys, we can hopefully in the future it'd be cool if our surveys were like 3-dimensional, like surveys, like remember those things that what are those things that you could like open up? Remember, like, no,
fortune teller.
The fortune telling thing, yeah, like that.
Yes, Steve, what number do you like move it around? Yeah.
I also didn't mention, but the picture that I put on my background is one I took this morning out at Bear Divide in Los Angeles, outside of Los Angeles. It's a pass in the mountains here, just north of the valley, where millions of birds go through this pass. So talking about the air element, and around this time they're migrating from like mid-April to mid-May, and so researchers go up there in the mornings and count all the birds they can, and all the types of species, all the diversity that's passing through, and it's pretty amazing to see all these birds flocking. And they have some nets up that some of the birds kind of like stumble into, and it seems a little inhumane, but they use the nets to tag some of the birds so that they can track them over a few years and understand what's happening to the same birds over time in those populations. So we got to see some of the researchers tagging the birds, and up close some really gorgeous birds up there, warblers and lazuli, buntings. I don't know. It was all like bird nerd talk. Bird nerd talk. Still learning about birds at the very fundamental level. So, yeah.
What's the word?
Bird's a bird.
I was just imagining like one like bird coming up to the other one, and the other one of them has like the tag on him, and he's like, "Bro, what's going on with that? Like, what do you got there?" And he's like, "Oh man, you don't understand, dude. I'm a cyborg bird now. I'm a cyborg. I'm a cyborg.
Cyborg. Yeah. Yep. It's true.
So awesome. I mean, this was like a great air session. Looks like we got some frozen air sign. Look at Hoda is like frozen. Her air element got
I'm
frozen. Oh, there she is.
can you hear me? I'm busy filling out the form.
Oh, it was funny. Your video got frozen there.
Sorry.
But yeah, thank you all for showing up. Let's keep things flowing. Let's continue opening portals, like Charlie said. Let's create our own tornadoes, our own vortexes that can replace the current ones. Is that too provocative? No, yeah. We can create more harmonious tornadoes. Thank you all for showing up.
Thank you so
Troy.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You're amazing, all of you.
See you
So much
soon.
love.
See you soon, Sarissa.
Yeah.
Good job, everyone.
See you
Thank
soon,
you.
y'all.
Thank you,
Bye.
Troy. Appreciate you. Thanks, Drew. Appreciate you, man.
See you soon. Bye bye.